I feel that one of the strongest ways you can look beyond your life and grow beyond just your story is by converting whatever pain experience there has been into purpose. And once you make that identity leap, it takes you beyond fear. And you're not afraid of anything. You don't care what people say.
Rima, would you like to describe your work before I delve deeper into further questions?
Yeah, okay. So, technically, I'm a comprehensive sexuality educator and a trainer. So, that translates into someone who teaches and trains young people, adults, parents, teachers, and corporate, wherever sort of all of these conversations are held about the nuances of sexuality, what it is, gender, not sexuality, not just in terms of sex and sexual relationships, but in terms of orientation and body image and how you feel within yourself and self-worth issues and adolescent issues, bullying. So it's like life ed in a way. Toxic relationships, healthy relationships, how to identify them, how to get out of them, abuse, trauma, how to recognize it, how to step out of it. And then, of course, there's consent and there's harassment issues, harassment in the classroom, in the workplace, and I write along the same lines. I'm also a writer. I write poetry also along the same lines, and also like personally stuff that moves me. And then I'm also a counselor in the same area of comprehensive sexuality, which a step further, if you look at it, counseling, I've taken it a step further and trained in intimacy, relationships, and all of that. So basically targeting any young person, or maybe someone who has issues and is older. So most of the work that I do is with young people in their 20s or in their 30s or even younger. So it's very rewarding because that's the age where you can really make a difference. And if you can sort of change something at a belief level.
What advice would you give to people who take a long time to get out of a certain mental space? And I would like to sort of link it with something that, usually sometimes trauma happens in the childhood, which is like many years back, and then it comes up back again, when you're an adult and you're learning new things and you're undergoing intense feelings and experiences. So how does one, train himself or herself and shift out of that kind of a mental space?
So, to anybody who's already asked that question, step one has already been covered. That's awareness that there is something that's going on, and there is something that is not useful for me. It's a mental space that's not unresourceful. It's not helping me. That's how I look at things, and also teach in a similar way that nothing's good or bad. It's either helping you or it's not helping you. So I'd say if it's taking anyone a long time, and sometimes it does take a long time, and that's okay. It took me 12 years, and it's all right. People take even longer because there are life circumstances, then there are support systems, then there's availability, then there's awareness, introspection. Where are you at in your life? And not everybody has that kind of luxury to be able to seek therapy, which is expensive, or seek a lot of self-work, which is also, all the tools available are fairly expensive, like NLP or MSP or whatever. Right. But I'd say if you've come to the awareness, try and sort of visualize your outcome. Where do you want to be at? If you have understood where you are at right now, and you don't like that space, and you're anxious and hurt or traumatized in that space, visualize your outcome. Where do I want to be at? If I don't like this, then what do I like? And then work backwards from there. So you will understand what it is that, for example, if someone says, I'm worthless, I feel worthless for whatever reason, and trauma ke baad aksar hi hota hai, there is this feeling of worthlessness. I want to feel worthy, I want to feel amazing, I want to feel great. Step back from that. What are the things that you can do that will take you there? It could be something that the person loves or likes doing, like writing or music or whatever. What are the habits that I need to make to get to doing those things? Okay, and after habits, what are the belief systems that I need to change to be able to hold on to those habits? Because often why we are stuck is because there is something impeding us at a belief level. we really do believe that we can't. We really do believe that we're worthless. We really do believe that we don't deserve something good, which is also often a fallout of trauma. So change needs to happen at the belief and identity level, but it's often not easy. And most people are don't know about teachers or trainers who can do this quickly, facilitate this quickly with them, and often it takes a long time. So just mapping that, that's what I make my clients do. Map your outcome. Where do you want to be, and then work backwards from there. And then when you've identified what it is that's stopping you and keeping you in this place, grow so aware of it that whenever the thought and the feeling comes to you, you are able to recognize it and say, no, I don't want this, and step out. Because pain is also misery. Misery is a very comfortable place to be in. It's also very, very attractive. And it used to be very attractive for me for a very long time. Oh, I'm sad. And then you're writing sad poetry, and then you're sort of indulging in all of this internal drama of being so sad and all of that. There are all these sad songs on your Facebook and sad poetry on your Instagram, which is all okay. But then I realized that that's how people saw me then, as a sad person, as somebody who did not have any joy. And then I was like, I don't want to be this way. I don't want to sound and feel like a victim. I'm not a victim. I want to thrive. So it's all okay to indulge in all of that, a little bit of drama. मजा आता है उसमें, कभी-कभी कर लेना चाहिए weekends में जैसे. Not all the time. Not all the time, because if you start really enjoying that drama, you will start living it. And then the drama is going to get stuck in your head so beautifully. Because that is the thing about our mind and our body. Whatever it is that we hold on to, we will facilitate it in our mind and body very beautifully. Our body will obey us, our mind will obey us. While we think it's the other way around, it's not really. It's at a very, subconscious level. If we want to believe that, oh, I'm a victim, so much has happened to me in life. And yes, it has. I'm not saying that it hasn't. But if that's where you want to stay, then your mind and body is going to behave in a way that's going to keep that situation in place.
Right.
But if at a core level you say, no, I refuse to be like this, I don't want to be like this, then the shift begins to happen. And that takes work. And that takes recognition and awareness and some amount of courage, yes. So I think that's one thing I really, really recommend doing, is just to stop thinking about what people are going to say. They won't say anything. They won't even remember.
What about the love relationships where, like I was saying, like it's your boyfriend, long-term boyfriend, or your fiance or your husband, where you have to say no to certain things, consent. So how does one deal with that? And we've seen a rise in domestic violence cases during this time. People are locked up.
See, the root of this problem is very cultural, again, because men and boys, they've not been taught that there are things like boundaries that they're supposed to respect. That there are things like, may I, that they need to ask, may I do this, may I do that. They just take everything for granted because they're so used to just taking. So that's where they're coming from. And if you are at the level of awareness where you can see that somebody likes that, like that, or someone who behaves like that makes you uncomfortable.
Yeah.
When I'm not saying love or attraction can be prepared or sort of very meticulously thought out. I'm not saying that. But in terms of romantic relationships, do look at who will you be comfortable having a difficult conversation with. That's like my testing criteria for anybody that I've dated in the past or want to date. Start a difficult conversation. Like, I feel I'm not comfortable with. What is your response? Things that men run away from and they don't want to talk about, because that means looking inwards. That also means change. That also means challenging their beliefs, and that also means listening, which comes very, very difficultly. A whole lot of men have problems listening to women voice their opinions because they're just hardwired to shut them down. And बहुत कम मर्द ऐसे होते हैं जिनमें उतनी अवेयरनेस होती है कि वो रोकें अपने आप को और सोचे जरा सा. That number of men I hope are growing, and that is also part of my work, to address men to come out of their masculinity, toxic sort of masculinity, and really start working on themselves, because this is not good for them as well. They're also holding back a lot. So in the beginning of a relationship, or if you're dating someone, talk about difficult things. That is also, I wouldn't say a problem, but I think something is going on at this moment in time where people don't want to talk about intentions anymore when they see people. They're like, हाँ ठीक है, मिल रहे हैं, देखेंगे, and even on their heads they don't want to address intentions. Where do I want this to go? Where do I see this going? Do I want to be with this person? Because it is when you think about your intentions that you think about the difficult things, and then you ask difficult questions and you have difficult conversations, and the other person's response to that will tell you a whole lot about that person, where they're at, and also if they're willing to sort of negotiate, because relationships are a whole lot of negotiation. And if the response is like, oh, I can't handle shit like that, and please don't talk to me like that, if they sort of shut you down, if they're cold, if they whatever, then you know that this is not where I want to be. And it's okay to step back. It's okay to step back in 2 months or 3 months or 4 months. It doesn't mean you're giving up. It just means you're being smart and seeing and really sort of, again, mapping your outcome. Is this the kind of relationship I want? Is this material workable? If this material is not workable, then I'm not going to waste my time working on it. That, this person is really not listening to me. So stop being an idiot and hope. Just address the question. Do you, 6 months, 2 months into a relationship, address those things. This is my intention. This is what I want with this relationship. What do you want? Once you ask that question, you'll know how much room there is for conversation, how much room there is for negotiation, how much room there is for honesty. And sometimes it will break your heart and you'll have to step back. Okay, you find someone else. And if you're already in a relationship, like a marriage or a long-term relationship, and you suddenly find these issues cropping up, try and sort of resolve and really push them gently to sort of face this and say, look, if you're not going to communicate with me at a very honest, sort of authentic level, it's going to be really hard. And I don't want this to be hard for us. I feel this way. And it would be really nice if you can look at it through my perspective, my lens, and understand that this is where I'm coming from. So oftentimes relationships में क्या होता है ना, we start with blame. तुम्हारी वजह से, and you make me feel like this, and you do this to me, that is why this happens to me. It's all bullshit. We do things because we do things, so we do things. Yeah. There's a lot of blame going on. Yes, we as human beings do respond and react to things. There are triggers, but what you do with that response is your own responsibility.
Absolutely.
If you're uncomfortable by something that your partner said, and if you're not, feeling okay, if you're really angry, it's your responsibility what you do with that anger or that discomfort. Do you go to another room, take a breather, make a list of things that you need to talk about, and then come back next day and say, I need to have a conversation? Or do you scream and throw things and make a scene, and you also push the other person to be a complete moron and then have a big blow up? So accept your part of the responsibility also in the whole situation. And then see where it goes. And if you're really committed to each other, you will find a way to communicate.
I also do know of a few women who don't even realize that they are being abused because of the different kinds of abuses. It's not just physical. How to recognize that you are in not such a great relationship and you might be a victim of abuse. Like sometimes people don't realize things like emotional abuse.
Our bodies are great indicators of what's going on. They almost always tell us. And grief or being abuse is something that is felt at a very physiological level, be it by men or women. So sure, everybody has not reached that level of awareness to understand, oh, this guy is mansplaining me, or this guy is gaslighting me, and falana dimkana, all those terms that we have. But there is inside you always a feeling and a voice that this is not okay. And kids know, it's just instinctive. It's what we felt when we were children and we were being, sort of made to do things by our parents or XYZ, and then we felt like this is not okay, and we felt somehow smaller. and limited and afraid also, because to speak up about it would mean losing that kind of position or losing that place that you had in your family or in your relationship, and feeling so terribly alone. So I think these are giveaways, and if you pay attention to that, you can use those feelings as sources or tools to dig in deeper and
Right.
see if there's a pattern. So the biggest thing that can help you see a problem the way it is, for what it is to examine if there's a pattern. And if there's
Yeah.
a pattern, and if X happens because Y has happened before, and Y happens because whatever usse pehle W has happened before Y, or whatever, So if you see a pattern being repeated again and again, and you find yourself in the same position, feeling small and really not worthy, and really, just not capable of doing anything or escaping, and feeling like this is the only life that you have, and there
Yeah.
are no other possibilities, that's
Yeah.
a very strong giveaway to the fact that there is some kind of abuse or negative environment or negative behavior around you which is making you feel this way. And from there you can go on and sort of examine. And for those of us who do sort of understand abuse, it's still difficult to get out of it or to completely recognize it for what it is, because if it's done by a stranger, it's so much more clearer, no? If a stranger has hurt you, or if someone you've just met has hurt you, then it's just so easy to sort of lay that blame and say, this person hurt me. But if it's someone you love, and if it's someone you share a house with, a family with, share children with, and then it becomes like, if there's like a split in your head literally, which says this is true, oh no, but this is not true. And you're sort of people who've gone through emotional abuse in relationships, or sexual abuse in relationships, or domestic violence, always live in the, somewhere between the fault lines of this dichotomy. Is this the person who hurts me, but is this the person who loves me? So which of these is the real person? You know what I'm
Right.
saying?
Right.
And to sort of understand that this is the same person, and to recognize that person for what he or she is, because abuse is not gender specific.
Right.
It takes a lot. I think it takes an immense amount of courage also, and honesty, to see things for what they are. And then some people do not have the luxury of making a choice. But then again, there are choices at a very internal level that you can make in terms of how you respond to that abuse. And when you change your response to that abuse, the abuse also shifts and changes, because the abuse is attached to a human being. When that human being sees resistance, and that human being sees that, my shit is not going to be taken so nicely anymore, of course they'll find other ways to try and hurt you. But then, if you find ways to sort of get out of that situation, get help, protect yourself, or just mentally toughen yourself if you can't get out. But
Yeah.
chances are, 99% of the time that you can get out. You just don't see it.
Wow.
You just don't realize it. And internally you feel like, oh, this is my life, and I can't live without this person. Because that's the only reality you've known to live. It's up to the point that you make a decision, that you feel like you can't breathe. Once the decision has been made, then your mind changes, and you start making plans. Abhi ye karna hai, fir ye karna hai, fir ye karna hai, fir ye karna hai. And then you become like this very covert, clever person who's quietly setting things up, quietly doing things.
Right.
Just makes that shift. Till the point that you make that decision is where all the darkness is. Once you make a decision,
Right.
then you know what to do. Then
Okay.
it sort of instinctively things follow. Sexuality and self-image post-trauma.
Right.
Which is what we discussed, we talked about. So I think body image, when you go through trauma, especially sexual trauma, especially for women, I mean also for men, because I've worked with so many men who really sort of hate their bodies, hate the way they look.
Yeah.
They're so conscious of the way they look, that I have body hair, or I have this, or I have that. But in women, because we're sort of taught to look at ourselves and judge ourselves on the basis of looks, and how we look is our is what attracts the world to us.
Yeah.
We judge ourselves even more. And when sexual trauma has happened, or abuse has happened, or cheating has happened, and your partner's left you for somebody else, blah blah blah, whatever it is, we tend to sort of blame ourselves first.
Right.
And if you have a body that doesn't fit into the normative paradigm of what beauty is like
Yeah.
my body, for example, it's harder to love yourself then. It's so hard to love yourself. But it's a process. What I teach my clients now is to visualize their best self, to visualize it, and to sort of, again, it comes from NLP, to sort of create this circle of excellence in your mind right ahead of you, and add details to it, make it beautiful, make it gorgeous, and step into it and absorb all of the feeling that you get. It's a process and it's practice. And there will be days where you feel like shit, I weigh a ton. And I'm like, there are days where I feel like nothing fits and I'm
Right.
huge and I don't, I just tall, huge woman everywhere. Everyone's looking at me. And that is also true because everyone does look at me because I'm tall and I'm big and I sort of stand out. But then I'm like, theek hai, on that space. Fine, I'm big and some days it's an act. Most days it's an act. But you get so good at acting that act that you start enjoying it. And then you find your community who's also like you, who's body positive, who's like, woman, you're amazing, and all of that. And for people who are sort of emerging from abuse, invest in yourself, invest in your body, buy good things for yourself if you can. Get pampered, love yourself. I think growth also happens when you accept your own responsibility. And then you forgive yourself. And then you say, okay, so this happened and I did this. Ab kya? Aage kya? ऐसे ही रहना है. किसी blame game में घुसे रहना है या आगे बढ़ना है इससे. Fine, I did this. Fine, I made a bad choice. Fine, it didn't work out. I went through a lot of pain. But I'm choosing now to look at the future instead of just being stuck here. I'm choosing a better life now. I'm choosing to be a better version of myself. And that bridge is what sort of makes you blossom. And that faith in your capacity makes you blossom. But there will be, for people who've dealt with trauma and abuse and mental health issues, there are very dark days. And there are days when you feel, again, go back to all of that. And that's when the tools that you're learning or you have used, or your therapist, or your friends, that's where you reach out and then they reconnect you to that part of yourself. Or you reconnect to that part of yourself, which is a more whole sort of self. And you say, okay, well, this is just a moment. It's going to pass. It'll pass. And it passes.